Well, hi everybody, and welcome to our Church360 Ledger Financial Reports webinar. I'm Anna Johnson. I'm the host for the webinar today. I'm a marketing manager here at Concordia Technology Solutions. You can see my email and my phone number listed there on the screen. This is the final Church360 Ledger webinar in our set of March webinars. So at the end of this series, we will be sending out an email and you can see the complete collection there. If you are unable to find from that whole collection what you're looking for, please do feel free to use that email address or that phone number to give me a call and I'll try and help you and get you the information that you need. Since this is only a 30-minute webinar today, I'm going to get right into it and start right off the bat with some of our housekeeping. So we'll have 25 minutes or so for our presentation today. I'll leave about 5 minutes at the end for questions, but you're always allowed to ask questions throughout. So if I'm going through something too quickly and you want me to hold up, just let me know and I can either reiterate that right in the webinar or circle around to it back at the end. And then we'll make sure everything gets answered in the webinar. And again, the recording will be shared. So if there's somebody at your church who wasn't able to make it today but really did want to learn more about the reports in Church360 Ledger, they're definitely welcome to go over to our YouTube channel or to our resource center and view that recording after the fact. Here's going to be the outline for our training today. At the beginning, I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through setup. So that's going to go through accounts, budgets, and payees. The reason I want to do that is because if you missed any of our other webinars, it'll be really foundational for you to know that you have your chart of accounts set up right and your budget set up right and all your payees organized correctly so that you're able to garner what you need to out of the reports. So we're going to do that maybe for about 5 minutes at the beginning of this webinar today. If I go through that too fast, we do have separate webinars on each of those 3 different topics. So definitely view those if you weren't able to get what I was going through today. And then we're going to go into our standard reports and ledger. We're going to start off with the main transactions view, which is that first view you see when you log into Church360 Ledger. Although it's not an official report, it's able to be exported and printed just like any of the other reports in our report section. And there are some cool things you can do from there, especially from drilling down into accounts that give you a report-like feature. So I want to make sure you guys know exactly what you need in that transactions view. Then we'll go over to our general ledger report, our income and expense report, our chart of accounts report, and our balance sheet report. Those previous 4 items are really the core bread and butter reports in Church360 Ledger, and then we'll wrap up with our events log, which is the way we record and report on who's been working in your Church360 Ledger account. So I'll show you how to do all of those things today so that you're familiar with all your different options once you get started in the software. So that being said, we're about right on time, so I'm going to get started here. Just give me a second to pull up my Church360 Ledger account. You can hopefully see my home screen there, and this is the first item I want to talk about today. So a few main things which I always go over. This main graph here is your running balance graph, so you can see it's bigger than all the rest, and it's the cumulative total of all your assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. So you can see that right here. Down below beneath here we have a list of all your transactions, the types, the payees, the dates. You can see that from this view nothing's really able to be grouped or sorted, and that's on purpose. This is just supposed to be giving you a cumulative timeline of all the things you've done in Ledger recently. If you're looking for a report that allows you to group and sort one of those things, that's what we're going to get into in a few minutes up here in our reports view. So just so you know, you're able to group and sort different things. It's just not from this main view. A couple of other things to be aware of on the main view is that there's some symbols here that let you know what's going on. So you have a voided symbol here, and any voided transactions obviously are not going to be counted towards any of your income or expense or account totals. So those are zeroed out, but it's still listed here in your main view, so you have a record of everything that happened in Ledger. And if we scroll down even farther, I know it's been quite a while since I reconciled this account. This is just our test account, so I don't always get a chance to reconcile. Let me actually go back here. I'm going to use our date selector and go back to 2016 because I know I reconciled a few accounts then. So we'll just give it a minute to load there. There we go. One other thing you'll notice in the main view is that some transactions have this locked button, which when you hover over it means that the transaction has been reconciled. So if you're in their main view and you're not able to really click or edit any of these transactions, just look for that little reconciliation symbol. You'll notice that if you try and do anything with it, everything in the report there will be grayed out to let you know it's a view only, a read only view. So those are the two main functions you can do from this main transactions view report in Church360 Ledger. However, there are also some cool unique features you can do with these graphs up top. Each of these is kind of like a mini report for each of your accounts, and I really want to show how this works with your asset accounts. So each of these 4 small accounts, is clickable. So you can see we click into your assets account, and then you have 2 more options. You can do your first checking or your savings account, whatever accounts you've set up right there. So you can see that all of these things are tied into your chart of accounts, and it's infinitely drillable until you have no more to drill down into. So this will be a really good thing if maybe you just want to report on what's left in your building fund, for example. You can use these clickable line items to drill down. You can see we don't have any transactions in this time period. I think if I go back forward, it'll give me some transactions. Hold on. Maybe I picked a bad example there. Let's go into our education report. I'll go over here. There we go. So you can see this is kind of like a mini report of what's going on in our education fund here in Church360 Ledger. So you can see just the transactions that were tied to your education asset restricted fund in your first checking account. And then you can see what happened over time. Again, in this view, you'll notice that any voided transactions are listed but grayed out. Now, if you're wondering, how did Ledger know, how did we navigate to all of these different accounts and how are they set up like that? That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar with getting your chart of accounts set up correctly. So all of these reports, all of these assets, liabilities, income, and expenses are determined by how you've set up your chart of accounts. If you haven't done that already, just a quick little 1-minute reminder, all you need to do is go over into your settings cog, click in chart of accounts, and it'll just take a second or two to load there. And you can see that all of these accounts listed here are what was showing up when I clicked in that mini graph. So I clicked on my assets mini graph, then I clicked on my checking account mini graph, and then I clicked finally on education, and those totals should match as time goes by. And you can see this is the same process for your liability, your income, and your expense accounts too. So that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're on your main view here and you're like, I don't see something, where is it showing up? Definitely check your chart of accounts, make sure if it's asset, you listed it under the asset as a restricted fund, or maybe you had thought it was under your assets account, but you didn't create a parallel account in your income report. So one word of wisdom, just make sure that before you try and dig into any of this reporting, do have that chart of accounts set up right there. I think I've shown enough things, hopefully, about all the ways you can use reports and report on your different income, expense, asset, liability count individually. But I think the next thing we'll want to do is let you know how you can get a broad overview of everything that goes on at your church. And that's going to be where we start getting into these reports right here. So I'm going to start off right here with my general ledger report. And you can see this looks different from the main screen in a few key ways. One, we have a red transactions here. These are transactions which have been voided. So instead of being grayed out, they're red on this general ledger report to let you know that they're a little bit different. Also, whereas in the main screen, none of these columns are clickable or sortable, everything in the general ledger report is clickable and sortable. So if you're in your general ledger report and you want to see maybe just checks that were made out to your congregation during a different time, all you need to do is click on type, and then click on check. And in this report, it'll filter out all the checks for you. So this is a really nice feature that you can just get the info in Ledger without having to export to Excel. We can do some filtering in here for you. You can see that it's automatically sorted by date. If you wanted a different date or time frame, all you need to do is go up to this date selector here, and you'll notice that these three buttons, the date selector, the print icon, and the export to Excel icon, are the same across all views. So always start here if you have any questions. That's kind of like your home ground, your base, so you know what you're doing. So if I just wanted a report maybe for February of 2017, I could select that, and you can see that my transactions dynamically update. So if you were going to a church board meeting or something like that, and you wanted just to show the transactions that happened over the past month, you can use your date selector to do that. One other thing to make you aware of, I'm going to go back to all of 2017 right here, and it's just as easy as a click like that. If you maybe wanted to see your journal entries, the general ledger report is the place to go. Journal entries do still appear in that main view I was showing you about a few minutes ago, but the best way to sort these is in the general ledger report. So you can see that I've made a few journal entries here in my general ledger report over time. If I wanted to print that, I could print that and share that with somebody, especially if somebody had questions about a transaction, maybe you had amended or changed. All of those will be recorded as journal entries right here. Now, besides filtering, there's some other nice things we can do here from the general ledger report. And the next kind of icon or difference you'll probably notice is this little link icon right here. Wherever you see a link icon in any of the reports, that's having Ledger ask you if you want to keep your view as it is or group it by a certain characteristic. So you can see that in this report, you're able to group things by payee or account. So I'm going to group things by payee right here. And as soon as I do that, you'll notice a few differences. The format is very different. You can see that right up here there's a 0, kind of 3 dashes. That just lets me know these transactions were not related to any particular payee. And I could also filter that out too. So if I said I want to group all my transactions that involved a payee, but not anything that didn't involve a payee, you can do that right here. So you can see in our Group by Payees report, it's very nicely laid out, very nicely formatted for you to use. If you want to print it just from here, that's fine. The categories will print in alphabetical order. But what I think the really cool part of this Group by feature is that the formatting stays if you export it to Excel. So I'm just going to click that button, give Ledger a couple minutes. You can see we're waiting to generate the report right here. And when it's ready, the general ledger report will export right here in the bottom of your downloads folder. Oh, that was an old report I had. I'm sorry about that. And we'll open our new Church360 Ledger report. Just give me 1 second here to get it up on the screen. Okay. Let's try that again. I'm going to export. Click on my general ledger report. There we go. Excel's starting up again. There we go. Sorry about that little delay. So this is really cool. You can see that the formatting and the grouping that you had selected in the main view from Ledger carries over into Excel. So you don't have to reformat things when you go over to Excel. Another nice thing here is if you wanted to just maybe share a portion of your report, you could just use this feature in Excel to do that. And then everything else stays the same format as it had before. One more thing you can do that kind of relates to this payee column is from the general ledger report, you can group payees by whatever the payee is. So you can report on maybe you just wanted to see all your water bills for the past year. You could do that by simply clicking on the payee's name from your general ledger report, and you can see this works on any of your payees. And then from this view, you can see any details you've entered about them. These details, again, are recorded up here in your settings and your payees, which I can get to in just a second. Like I had mentioned before, these three buttons are always in the same place at the same time, and then you can select any date range you want. It'll give you the total of your debits and credits to that payee for this account. Another nice feature is that you can also access an account report from here too. So if I wanted to see what I paid to Concordia Publishing House, and then I just wanted to see what I paid to the Youth Fund, I can do that by just clicking on that original report that was generated right there. Now let me just back up very quickly. I'm going to go back to my general ledger report. The thing you'll notice is that this kind of clickability is not restricted just to payees. You can also do that with accounts too, so I can group by account. And then I can see all my account totals here. Any payees that were listed are here. And again, the accounts are clickable. So if I wanted to see a building fund, I could just use that general ledger report to go to my building fund. So hopefully what you're starting to see right now is there's many ways to do things. I could have went to my building fund through the home screen and by using those clickable graphs, or maybe I was working in the general ledger report and I realized I needed to print off a report for my building fund. You can do that just as easily, and you can print and export just as easily from any of those main views that you're working on. The next report we're going to talk about is our income and expense report. And this is the report that's tied to budgets. So just as a quick refresher, to get your budget set in the first place, you'll see that this column has to do with budgets in this column. All you'll need to do is go up to your settings cog and select budgets. I'll give it just a minute again here to get ourselves loaded. This little no sign here just means that it's loading and we can't do anything. So you can see that I've entered my budgets in here already for 2017. If we go back to 2016, it'll let me do that, even let me work forward a year on budgeting, which is really nice. But all the figures in your income and expense report are determined by the numbers you enter here into budgets. So if you're in your income and expense report and you realize that maybe you entered one of your budget figures incorrectly, you will have to go back to this budgets view to fix that. We're going to go back to our income and expense report, and this again has a few dissimilarities to the previous reports we saw. For one, we're not going to group these things anymore because we're just trying to see budgets for actuals, our percent spent, and our dollars remaining. The nice thing this does have, though, is it has these expandable and collapsible columns. So if you just wanted to give an overview, broad level of your income less your expenses for the year, you could use this little cursor icon to expand and class the different areas. Or maybe you wanted to show each category, but you didn't want to show each account under the category. You can also expand and collapse all of these. So maybe you're just giving a report at your monthly treasurers meeting, and not everybody needed to know every subcategory, but they wanted to see the totals for each of your funds here under income. You can do that, and then you can also do the same with your expenses. So you're allowed to expand and collapse these however you want to in order to accomplish your desired result. You can also export these to Excel and use your date range selector. So I know in the past we've had a lot of people saying, oh, I want to compare budgets across a couple years. How would I do that? The way I would recommend doing this is just using your date selector up here, taking your 2017 income and expense report, exporting that, and then exporting any other years you want, and you can kind of build that together in Excel and garner that as well. And we can also click down here into just a month. So if you wanted just a month-to-month budget versus actual, you can do that too from your income and expense report. Okay. The next report I want to talk about is our chart of accounts report. So whereas our income and expense report showed our income and expense accounts, our chart of accounts report is going to show our assets and our liabilities. And again, the same principles apply here. You can show your assets, your liabilities, your income, and your expenses. So you get to show all four broad categories in this report. You can see your total starting and ending balance, your change over time. I'm going to actually go back here, maybe just go to Q1 to give you a more full picture of what that would look like. starting balance and ending balance, debits, credits, and then it'll do some math with you for percent change and dollar change over time. Now, as I was saying before, we can export these things to Excel as well. And while I give it a minute here, you'll notice that as soon as you click Enable Editing, that this dollar change and percent change over time are used to calculate formulas. So the numbers that are exported to Excel aren't just static numbers. It's not just taking this amount and calculating it for you. It's dynamic. It already has those formulas built in there for you. So if you do need to do some extra math or you just want to play around in Excel a little, you're not going to have to reset these two columns. You'll be able to just work on these numbers if that's what you want to just do to get a better picture of where you're at. Next thing we're going to go through, and I think I have about 10 minutes here, and 5 minutes of that will be questions, so I'll try and hurry up a little bit. We'll go to our balance sheet report, and this balance sheet report just shows your assets and your liabilities, and then your assets less your liabilities, which is your total equity here. You'll notice that there's definitely some similarities here between your balance sheet report and then our previous chart of accounts report that we were just on, in that these columns here are the same and the same principles will apply as did when I was trying to export things with the formulas over here. Again, this column will be calculated for you based on whatever formula is in there, taking your starting minus your ending balance to give you equity. Okay, those are the four main reports here. And then the fifth thing I want to talk about is kind of a report, but really is something more for internal reporting. So a good thing to remember when you're up here in your reports view, these top four views are probably the types of reports you might want to share at a church council meeting, or if pastor comes and asks you about a certain fund, you would use these four types of reports here. If you want to be kind of the internal auditor or gatekeeper for your Church360 Ledger account, the event log is kind of our fifth type of report that you're going to want to use. And the same principles apply for your event log as do your other reports, but you'll see that the columns here are very different. And I'm just going to give it a second to refresh here. Sometimes this takes a while because what Ledger's doing is it's taking a record of everything that's happened in your Church360 Ledger account throughout time. So if it takes a few minutes, don't worry, you can see I just refreshed on my screen here and it let me do what I wanted to do. So there are a few nice things in the event log. Everything has a timestamp and you can see it's pretty exact down to the second. And then it tells you what type of action happened. And you have all different types of actions here: created, finalized, destroyed, or updated. So created is pretty obvious. That's if somebody's adding in a new transaction of any type, it'll be created. Finalized will have to do with transactions that can no longer be edited. So you can see this is everything that's been reconciled and when it happened. So you can see my dates here. And then it'll let you know which account items were reconciled. So you click on this, and then the nice thing here is you get a reconciliation report of that statement date. So that's a very nice feature you can drill down into from the event log. Destroyed is any transactions you might have voided. So a good thing to remember here is that if you destroyed something, in this case I deleted a payee, there is still a record from it. So if you end up being worried at any point in time something got deleted and it wasn't supposed to, or you have multiple people working in your account and you think something may have gotten deleted, you can always go and see if that was actually deleted by using the event log. You don't have to go to that person and ask. You can access that right here. So even if something is deleted, it's not removed in eternity. You can always go back and see what happened to it. And then you're also able to see any updated transactions. So these are transactions that would have happened. So this is letting me know that I updated my chart of accounts so that my children's ministry accounts can use checking, and we can do that with that type of account. So this will happen with any types of accounts as well. So in this transaction case, the only thing I updated was an account. But if I also updated a transaction, that will show in here too. I'm going to go over to 2017. You can see I was last working in budgets, but if I go over here and I filter out by transactions, You can see that I have created up here, and then if I scroll down far enough, hopefully I'll be able to find an example where I edited a transaction. Here's a good one. Here's a good example right here. So when you edit a transaction, this is what it'll look like in the event log. It'll let you know that a new transaction was created. The reason it says created here is that each edit you make has this individual unique identifier so that you can always go back to it, but it'll always link in the event log to the original transaction. So if you edit a transaction, the best place to look is to look over here in the messages column. And then you're able to access from this report those transactions, both the original one and the one that was edited. So that's a nice feature you can use too. And then you can also filter just like I was doing, export by date, use this date selector. And then you can also filter by users. Now, since this is just my test account, I'm the only user in here. You can see I'm the one making changes all the time. But if you're at a church and you're using that cloud capability in Ledger where you have different users with different permission levels, you can always go to the users column right over here and select users. So if there's one person in particular that maybe came to you and said, oh my gosh, I thought I messed this up, or I think I did this, you can filter by users in this view here to verify and fact check their claims. With that being said, I'm about 1 minute over on my 25 minutes, so I'm going to finish talking in the software now. Again, if you have any questions, just email me at a later time, and we can definitely go through any of those questions that you have. Let me get up to my slides here because I do have a few parting words to share with you all. The first thing I want to talk to you about is our Church360 Ledger blog. If you're not subscribed there, you can go to this URL, 360ledger.com/blog, and sign up. This will let you know anytime our developers release an update. We'll post a blog about it and then send you an email to let you know that update took place. The next thing I wanted to talk about is our Church360 Ledger training manual. This is a paper training manual. It's available on our website for $25 plus shipping. Now, if you're a little on the fence, you're asking, do I really need a training manual? The one thing I would encourage you to do before you go out and buy that training manual is use our in-app help system. And I'm going to switch back to the software here just for that. The in-app help system is free, and pretty much everything that's in the in-app help system is also in the training manual. So if you just want to find out some things about reports and you don't want to buy that training manual, please do go check our help system here. You can just type in reports. You can see any reports that we have or articles we have on our reports come up. I'll just click on this and it'll have a little in-app message here about the reports article. These screenshots are even moving. Now if you want to see a bigger version of that, you can just click on the See Original Article button. And this will take you to our complete report center. So you can see all our reports here. It talks about everything that we used up to this point that we went through in the webinar today. And you can just click through these articles. Again, these articles in the help system are the same articles you're going to find in that paper manual. So I'm always encourage you, unless you're a person who really needs a paper manual, please do go check that online help system before you order the manual off the website. One last time, here is my contact info. You can see my name and my email address and my phone number up there. The other set of people you can call if you have any questions about Ledger is our support team. You can either email them or give them a call, or actually a third option I didn't list here is our in-app help system. If I go back to Ledger and you click on this send us a message button, this is kind of a third way to get in touch with our support team. One thing I also want to let you know is that sometimes we've heard from customers and they say, oh, well, nothing's really wrong with my software. I just have a question about something works. Can I reach out to support? The answer is yes, definitely. That's why they're there. So support kind of has a twofold purpose. One, they're there if you're using your software and you can tell that something's wrong, reach out to them. But if you're just getting used to the software and you have a question about something works, or maybe you forgot something I said in the webinar, they're here to try and help you as much as they can. They're experts in the software and they work through it every day. So don't hesitate to contact them or contact me if you have any different types of questions. I'm just going to go check in my questions box here, and it looks like nobody has asked any questions today, and it's just about 1:30, so I'm going to actually end the webinar 1 minute early today. Just wanted to thank you all again for coming, and we hope you have a great time and enjoy using Church 360 Ledger.